Walk with me.
The mighty God, even the I Am, hath spoken and called the earth from the rising of the sun to the going down thereof. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God hath shined. Our God shall come and shall not keep silence. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous around about him. He shall call to the heavens from above, and the earth, that he may judge his people. Together, my saints, gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, for God is judge himself. Selah. Hear, O my people, I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or burnt offerings to have been continually before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy folds. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know the fowls of the mountains and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. I will eat the flesh of bulls and drink the blood of goats. Offer unto God thanksgiving. Pay thou vows unto the Most High. And call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. But unto the wicked God saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Or that thou shouldest take my covenants in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instruction, and castest my words behind thee. When thou sawest a thief, then thou condemnest him with him, and hast been partaketh with adulterers. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother, thou slanderest thy own mother's son. These things hast thou done as I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such a one as thyself. But I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes. Now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. And whosoever offereth praise glorifieth me. And to him that ordereth his conversation aright, I will show the salvation of God. Psalms chapter 50. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have sway over the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me in my seat forever, that we go not astray henceforth and forevermore. Jubilees chapter 12 and verse 20. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, those of you on this platform and those platforms shared. Yes, I'm Mr. Clay. Walk with me. And we're in the book of Jasher, chapter 44. And we stopped with verse 33, and we're going to continue with verse 34. But before that, we thank God for those of you with a hand clap of praise that's been with us since the beginning when we started. And we thank God for those of you that have come in here and there's about. And we thank the Most High for those of you who have just subscribed. And we thank the Most High for those of you that are about to subscribe, calling those things that are not as though they are. Yes, all praises to the Most High, even glory to his name. Yes, and today is a beautiful day. Yes, it's a beautiful day. I mean, where I'm at, the sun is shining. Whether it's raining, shining, it's still beautiful. Because there's something you can get out of each, whether it's thundering and lightning, there's something you can get out that day. Whether it's being in a cozy place with your family or just by yourself alone, meditating on the things of the Most High. In the snow and the cold, just sometimes some people just live for the fact of just going out scurrying for wood and starting that fire and just enjoying the warmth of the fire. I mean, many things. Yes, God gives us all these things. But regardless of what we do, we still have to give account to the Most High. We still have to separate from this body and go give an account. What's after this? What's beyond the body? Some say they saw. They might have. They might not. We don't know. But the fact is, for the majority of us, we know that we shall cease to be in the body and cease to be somewhere and thrive, or should I say materialize or be somewhere else as another being. Yes, we shall. And with that, we're going to continue. We first got where this woman, Zilica is Potiphar's wife. I mean, Potiphar doesn't know what's going on because she's been very devious with her own husband. Very devious. But yet she's been wanting this young man. This young man whom she says is beautiful to her. And he's beautiful to her cohorts or her women friends. They ate some citrons together and they had a good time, and she dressed him up to parade him in front of them. And they all couldn't believe their eyes that such a beautiful man to them existed. And in verse 34, and they said unto her, the words are true, for who can see this beautiful form in the house and refrain from him? And is he not thy slave and attendant in thy house? And why dost thou not tell him that which is in thy heart, and sufferest thy soul to perish through this matter? Nobody said, well, you don't do that. That's a question they asked. And she said unto them, I am daily endeavoring to persuade him, and he will not consent to my wishes. And I promised him everything that is good. This cougar she's not cutting it. You want a PlayStation? You want this? You want that? Oh my! And yet I could meet with no return from him. I am therefore in a declining state, as you see. And Zilica became very ill. I mean, have you ever felt lovesick for someone? I mean, you just couldn't eat. It felt like you just couldn't be without that person. I mean, as a young man, yes, I've been that way, and I'm sure many of us have been that way. Just, it's just a feeling. It's going to leave eventually. But for her, for Zilica, it made her very ill on account, and she's married. I mean, you have control over your own spirit. You have control over your own things. There's nothing that can sway you unless you allow it. And on her mind, she couldn't control it. She could not tell this devil or this entity that's dealing with her, and not only that, but along with her own senses, that that's not yours. He's just a servant. And Zilkah became very ill on account of her desire toward Joseph, and she was desperately lovesick on account of him. And all the people of the house of Zilica and her husband knew nothing of this matter. She's just, some of you women, y'all, even men, you something happens and I just don't feel good right now. Let me go lay down. And your heart is pounding. Send the servant Joseph in so he can bring me some tea. And nothing of this matter, that Zilica was still ill on account of her love to Joseph. Her love, yes. That's what the Greeks would call it. And all the people of her house asked her, saying, why art thou ill and declining, and lackest nothing? And she said unto them, I know not this thing. In other words, she's in denial. She denies them, which is daily increasing upon me. And all the women and her friends came daily to see her, and they spoke with her. And she said unto them, this can only be through the love of Joseph. So she think. And they said unto her, entice him and seize him secretly. Perhaps he may hearken to thee and put off this death from thee. In other words, she cannot be satisfied till she have lain and copulated with Joseph, which is a lie. And Zilica came worse from her love to Joseph, and she continued to decline till she had scarce strength to stand. I mean, weak in the knees. This is that love that you feel when you was young. Yeah, all that. Oh, I can't wait to see her, see him. Oh, this is what you saw. And this is what she felt. But yet she's married. She already was in love with a man, or she was destined to be married to this man, but this was her husband. That was not hers. And just to stand on that truth alone would have freed her. Verse 40, and on a certain day Joseph was doing his master's work in the house, and Zilica came secretly and fell suddenly upon him. Fell on him. She threw herself at him. And Joseph rose up against her, and he said, more powerful than she. And he brought her down to the ground. And Zilica wept on account of the desire of her heart toward him, and she supplicated him with weeping, and her tears flowed down her cheeks. And she spoke unto him in a voice of supplication and in bitterness of soul, saying, hast thou ever known of so beautiful a woman as I am, or better than myself, who speak daily unto thee, fall into a decline through love for thee, confer all this honor upon thee, and still thou wilt not hearken to my voice. And if it be through fear of thy master, lest he punish thee, as the king liveth, no harm shall come to thee from thy master through this thing. Now, therefore, pray, listen to me, and consent for the sake of the honor which I have conferred upon thee, and put off this death from me. And why should I die for thy sake? And she ceased to speak. Here she is laying at his feet with all this desire for him. Being a married woman and not looking at the things that make sense. She's lost all sense of wisdom and common sense and discipline. And Joseph answered her, saying, refrain from me, and leave this matter to my master. Behold, my master knoweth not what there is with me in the house. For all that belongeth to him he has delivered into my house, into my hand. And how shall I do these things in my master's house? He used another approach, his master. First God, then his master. For he hath greatly honored me in his house, and he hath also made me overseer over his house. And he hath exalted me, and there is no one greater in this house than I am. And my master hath refrained nothing from me excepting thee, who are his wife. How then canst thou speak these words unto me? And how can I do this great evil and sin to God and to thy husband? And now therefore refrain from me, and speak no more such words as these. For I will not hearken to thy words. But Zilica would not hearken to Joseph. In other words, he's still a slave. I'm still more than him. He owes me. He has to do this with me. And would not hearken to Joseph when he spoke these words unto her. But she daily enticed him to listen to her. This woman was relentless. And it was after this that the brook of Egypt, that the brook of Egypt was filled above all its side. This is the Nile. And this was from the brook of Egypt to the Euphrates River. The Most High said in this narrative that was the land of who? The land of who? The land of Jacob, the land of Israel. God had given him all of that from the brook of Egypt to what? Now this is written here. No one will acknowledge this. Many say, well, this got to be the land of Israel, and this got to be there. From the Nile to the Euphrates is the true land of Israel. That's a vast place. Apparently this land wasn't split, or there was ways that they could get across from this here to, you have to realize how vast the children of Jacob have expanded after the releasing of them from slavery of the last Pharaoh of Egypt, or should I say the Pharaoh that was just before their deliverance from Egypt. And Joseph went on in verse 45, I'm reading midways, I am, and my master hath refrained nothing from me, except thee who art his wife. And how then canst thou speak these words unto me? How can I do this great evil and sin to God and to thy husband? And now therefore refrain from me, and speak no more such words as these, and I will not hearken to thy word. But Zillah would not hearken. And in verse 47, I'm going to skip a little bit. And it was after this that the brook of Egypt was filled above all its sides, and all the inhabitants of Egypt went forth. And also the king and princes went forth with the timbrels and dances, for it was a great rejoicing in Egypt. Why? Because of crops. I mean, it watered all their, gave them water for everything. It's just water in Egypt. And a holiday at the time of the inundation of the sea, Sihor. And they went there to rejoice all day. And when the Egyptians went out to the river to rejoice, it was their custom, all the people of the house of Potiphar went with them. But Zillah would not go with them, for she said, I am disposed. And she remained alone in the house, and no other person was with her in the house. And she rose up and ascended to her temple in the house, and dressed herself in princely garments. And she placed upon her head precious stones of onyx, inlaid with silver and gold. And she beautified her face and skin with all sorts of women purifying liquids. And she perfumed the temple and the house with cassia and frankincense. And she spread myrrh and aloes. And she afterwards sat in the entrance of the temple in the passage of the house through which Joseph passed to do his work. Come on here. And behold, Joseph came from the field and entered the house to do his master's work. And he came to the place through which he had to pass. And he saw all the work of Zillah. And he turned back. In other words, this cannot be good. This cannot be good. I do not want this woman for what I know is right. Being of sound mind and knowing who my God is and what he's capable of. I do not want her, but this devil she cannot resist. It only took for her to even think of a common sense. Even if she even went by the disciplines, the Egyptian disciplines of that time, if it were written in that time, that she should have lain with any man's husband or any woman's husband. And Zillah saw Joseph turning back from her in verse 51, and she called out to him, saying, What aileth thee, Joseph? Come to thy work, and behold, I will make room for thee until thou shalt have passed to thy seat. And Joseph returned and came to the house and passed from thence to the place of his seat. And he sat down to do his master's work as usual. And behold, Zillah came to him and stood before him in princely garments. And the scent from her clothes was spread to a distance. Yeah, she smelled good. And he hastened and caught hold, and she hastened and caught hold of Joseph. Now this is where she had been she's just going to use force, in other words, to grape him. You can't grape a man. A woman, she entices a man. She lures a man to desire her. And the man is caught like a spider in a web. After his desire is risen and everything is going, then bam, she has him right there. But a man, total opposite. He just desires the woman and everything is already set in place and he uses violence. But this woman, she caught hold of Joseph and she said unto him, As the king liveth, if thou wilt not perform my request. In other words, laying with her, thou shalt die this day. You know, this woman was so obsessed with Joseph, she says, I will kill you. A married woman. And she hastened and stretched forth her other hand and drew a sword from beneath her garments. And she placed it upon Joseph's neck And she said, rise and perform my request. If not, thou diest this day. For some men, this might be a fantasy for them to imagine, but it's no joke for Joseph, who has placed the I am at the top of his heart as the morning greeting, as the evening good night. It wasn't no priority for Joseph to be afraid of her, and he could not. And Joseph was afraid of her at doing this thing, and he rose up to flee from her, and she seized the front of his garments. And in the terror of his flight, the garment which Zilpah seized was torn, and Joseph left the garment in the hands of Zilpah, and he fled and got out, for he was in fear. I'm not going to lay with this man's wife. No, she can get all crazy and climb walls. I don't want to be with her. And when Zilpah saw that Joseph's garment was torn and that he had left it in her hand and he had fled, she was afraid of her life, lest a report should spread concerning her. And she rose up and acted with cunning and put off the garments in which she was dressed, and she put on her other garments. And she took Joseph's garments and she laid it beside her, and she went and seated herself in the place where she had sat in her illness before the people. And it was in her illness sick to want this young man to possess her. And she was already possessed in her mind by a spirit that would cause her to test Joseph. And she called a young lad who was then in the house, and she ordered him to call the people of the house to her. And when she saw them, she said unto them with a loud voice and lamentation, see what a Hebrew your master hath brought me in this house, to me in this house. For he came this day to lie with me. For when you had gone out, he came to the house, seeing that there was no person in the house. And he came unto me and caught hold of me with intent to lie with me. Now you have to realize this is an angel or a messenger or a spirit from God that have witnessed these things at that time and is speaking these things to Moses, even in this matter of, should I say, definition. Yes, definition. He's speaking it to Moses with everything, nothing lacking. And verse 57, and when she saw them, she said unto them with a loud voice and lamentation, playing like she crying, see a Hebrew your master has brought me in the house. For he came this day to lie with me. For when you had gone out, he came to the house, and seeing that there was no person in the house, he came to me and caught hold of me with intent to lie with me. And I seized his garments and tore them and called out against him with a loud voice. And when I had lifted up my voice, he was afraid of his life. And she concocted her lie just that quick and left his garment before me and fled. Now the 66 books are going to tell you. See, the angel is going in detail in this rendition. 6 books is only going to you can tell that it's been written by somebody else. They chopped off everything. And I'm sure they've gotten that even from these books. The same thing that was translated, these books of Jubilees, Jasher, were translated from. They chopped a lot of it off. And the people of her house, this should be the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis. This is what we read in the book of Genesis. Yes, Jubilees hold some parts of the book of Genesis. It talks about Jubilees means 49 years. And in verse 60, and the people of her house spoke nothing, but their wrath was very much kindled against Joseph, and they went to his master and told him the words of his wife. And Potiphar came home enraged, and his wife cried out to him, saying, what is this thing that thou hast done unto me in bringing a Hebrew servant into my house, for he came unto me this day to sport with me. Thus he did to me this day. Yeah, right. And Potiphar heard the words of his wife. Yeah, it's good that he believed his wife. And he ordered Joseph to be punished with severe stripes, and they did so to him. Here he is for an innocent man, for a lustful woman. Many men would probably be glad to do what she ordered them to do, but this was a test. And 63, whilst they were smiting him, Joseph called out with a loud voice, and he lifted up his eyes to heaven, and he said, "Oh, my God, oh, I am my God. Thou knowest that I am innocent of all these things. Why shall I die this day through falsehood by the hand of these uncircumcised wicked men, whom thou knowest?" Why? And while his Potiphar's men were beating Joseph, he continued to cry out and weep. And there was a child there, even 11 months old, and the I am opened the mouth of the child, and he spake these words before Potiphar's men who were smiting Joseph, saying, "What do you want of this man? And why do you do this evil unto him? My mother speaketh falsely and uttereth lies." Thus was the transaction. God opened the mouth of a baby out of the mouth of babes. That wasn't no praise, but hey, God had to sit up there. He delivered Joseph just from that. And the child told them accurately all that happened and all the words that Zilpah to Joseph day after day did he declare unto them. And all the men heard the words of the child, and they wondered greatly at the child's words, and the child ceased to speak and became still. No, the cow wasn't going, no, it wasn't going in those frenzy, it wasn't dancing across it, it wasn't go huma shuma shuma or whatever you want to call it. No, that child spoke in tongues, didn't have a tongue, couldn't form words, but God put words in the child's mouth. Who opened this man's mouth? He said to Moses, when Moses doubted the Most High, who gives man words to speak? God does. The same he did with this child. In verse 68, and Potiphar was very much ashamed at the words of his son, and he commanded his men not to beat Joseph anymore, and the men ceased beating Joseph. And with that, we're going to continue this. This is good. We're going to say peace.
Walk with me.